Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Joyroute-jojo. Today we start a new tutorial series on Azure Virtual Desktop. If you are watching this channel for the first time, I request you to please subscribe and support me. If you have any questions or suggestions, please mark it in the comment section. So let's start a new tutorial series today, Azure Virtual Desktop. So we will start with an overview of Azure Virtual Desktop. Azure Virtual Desktop was announced back in fall of 2019. I would like to pause and point out that Azure Virtual Desktop was originally called Windows Virtual Desktop. That was the product name when it was announced, when it was released earlier, and later they named to Azure Virtual Desktop, or in short we can say it as AVD. So there were 4 technologies that were part of the initial announcement. The first one was AVD service, Azure Virtual Desktop Service. This is a platform as a service or PaaS offerings that allows remote access to the Azure Virtual Desktop environment. The Azure Virtual Desktop Service facilitates the connection between the virtual desktop and the application and the end users. And the next one is Windows 10 multi-user. So as the name implies, this is the version of Windows 10 that allows multi-user session on a single installation of the OS. So one of the important thing to note here is that it's about Windows 10 multi-user. It's only available in Azure. It may be possible to download the disk image, but it is not supported outside the Azure. And the next product is nothing but FSLogix. What is this FSLogix? To understand the concept, like one problem with a remote desktop environment is that a user could log into, let's say, computer A, okay, and save something to that desktop. The next day they log into, this time they go to computer B. The document they saved on their computer is no longer available there. FSLogix make user profile portable. So it follows them around as they move to the different computers. So FSLogix is not limited to files on a desktop. It also saves user customization and things like browser favorites and all other stuff. FSLogix improves the user experience by providing consistent environment as users move between the computers. So that is FSLogix, and it is and we will be configuring FSLogix in this tutorial series. All right, so let's move to the fourth one, which is nothing but MSIX app attachment. So what is this MSIX app attachment? You probably used to installing application, and you likely have a few that need to be installed on a fresh computer before it's ready for the end user. So I repeat, what MSIX app attachment does, it attaches certain kind of packaging and running application in a way that are attached to the OS, not installed on the OS. This decreases the time to deploy new servers and make the application portable. So that is the concept of MSI app attachment, and we will see that detail in this tutorial series. We will create it, we will practically do it in the lab environment. Even all this we will be doing it. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the components that make up Azure Virtual Desktop. Let's start with some vocabulary. So in this tutorial series, you may hear the word like session host, host pool, remote application, remote app application group, desktop application group, workspace. So all these vocabularies you will be repeatedly hearing in this session. So you should understand what does it mean by, before we move further. You should know what is a session host. When I say session host, you should get the concept of session host. You should understand what is host pool, what is remote application and workspace and all these stuffs. So let's start with session host. So what is this session host? A simple language, what I can say, a session host is like a big shared computer that let many users to use it at once. So just before we talk about Windows 10 multi-user. So what happens in a session host, which is a big shared computer, we install Windows 10 or Windows 11 multi-user or OS operating system, and we allow many users to use it at once. So that is what called by session host. So what we have to keep in mind, all session host and host pool should be configured and size as identical as possible. If we are providing 128 GB to one session host, the same should be provided to the other one. So it should be configured and sized as identical as possible. Hope you got me. So I can just draw you for your better understanding. We'll go to an MS Paint. All right. So here we have a session host, and we have got another session host and the third one. Okay, so if you have provided 128 GB in the first one, the second one also should have the same configuration, and the third one also should have the same configuration. It's not compulsory that all should be the same configuration, but it's a good practice to keep all the session hosts as identical. And multi-user will be logged into this machine, like n number of users can log into this machine, as we have installed Windows 10 multi-user. Even 10 or 15, 20 users can log into this machine at a time. And the group of these session hosts are called host pool. Here, if you check it out, what is a host pool? Host pool is nothing but a group of session hosts are called host pool. A user log into one mission in a particular day, so he get mission 1. The next day he log into the other mission, he may get this mission 2, or he may get mission 3. All right, next is remote application. This is a group of non-desktop application available to the end users. Excel and Notepad, for example, which means an application available to the end user, an application installed on the session host, or a full desktop can be published as a remote application. And then we come to remote application group. A host pool can have multiple remote app application group. Users are assigned to an application group and will have access to any application in that group. Moving on to the desktop application group, this is a full desktop experience. A host pool can have only one desktop application group. Once is created by default and can be removed if it not needed. And just like remote app, users are assigned permission to the desktop application group. And the last one is nothing but a workspace. Workspace is a logical grouping of application group. This is what the user interact with. We are going to come back to these terms frequently throughout this course. I believe you got an introduction to the Azure Virtual Desktop. Don't worry, we will be doing it practically in the coming videos, and you will have more idea about all these terms. We learn about host pool types. Let us review the different types of host pools available in Azure Virtual Desktop. As we have already learned, the host pool is a collection of virtual machines used to host a user connections. So what is a session host? What is host pool? So all that we have already discussed in our last video. So I do not want to explain it again. So we have already learned the host pool is a collection of virtual machines used to host user connections. The two types of host pools available in Azure Virtual Desktop. One is personal host pool and the second one is pooled host pool. So let us learn what is this personal host pool and pooled host pool. Now we will learn about personal host pool. So a personal host pool has one-to-one mapping to a user to a virtual machines. So as you can see in this picture, a user is mapped one-to-one to a computer, one-to-one to a virtual machine. This is a type of pool to deploy if using a non-multi-sessional operating system like Windows 7 or a single versions of Windows 10 or Windows 11. As a matter of fact, Windows offers extended security updates until January 2033 for Windows 7 VM running in Azure. This provides a use case of extending Windows 7 support for application that cannot be yet migrated to Windows 10 or Windows 11. So another reason for personal host pool could be a processor intensive graphic or analytic software that won't work well with a shared computer, or all good candidates for a personal host pools. So these can be the reasons why we need personal host pool. The other type of host pool is nothing but pooled host pool. As you can see, multiple users are logging into a single virtual machine. A multi-session operating system such as Windows Server or Windows 10 multi-session multiple user sessions, or Windows 11 multi-user sessions are installed on these virtual machines, and user login, new connections are distributed across the sessions host. So generally speaking, for an average workload, it is more economical to spread many users across a smaller number of high-powered virtual machines in a pooled host pool than it is to host one-to-one user, two virtual machines in a personal host pool. So pooled host pool is a bit more economical when we compare to the other one, which is personal host pool. From this picture itself, you understand the difference between the personal host pool and the pooled host pool. All right. So there are two options for configuring how Azure Virtual Desktop load balances to a new client connections to session host and pooled host pools. One option is breadth first load balancing. The first one is breadth first load balancing. So in breadth first, distribute a new connection across all available session hosts evenly. For example, I can show you when a new user log in, it connect to the first host machine. Then it goes, when the other user comes, it goes to the second host, and the third one moves to the third host. And again, when the fourth one comes, again it comes to the first one, then to the second, then to the third. So in this way, evenly the hosts are distributed. We can set maximum number of connection per session host on the host pool. This will stop new connection if the maximum session allowed is reached. However, the maximum session limit is not required on breadth first host pool. Now we have the other one, which is depth first load balancing. The other option for pooled host pool load balancing is depth first. Depth first will fill one session host to the maximum number of connection allowed before directing traffic to the second host. So I can show you that when first user logs in, he get the first session host, and the second user also get the first session host, third one also get the same VM, the fourth one also get the same VM. When the fifth one comes, which means the maximum session allowed per host, it's 4 here. So when the fifth one comes, it moves to the second session host. So the load balancing is distributed in this way, in depth first load balancing. All right, so I believe you got an understanding about how breadth first load balancing and how depth first load balancing works for the pooled host pools. All right, so let's have a recap what we have learned today. We learned that there are two types of host pool. One is personal host pool and the other one is pool host pool. Personal host pool will be a dedicated virtual machines for a user, end user. In the case of pooled host pool, we install multi-user operating system of Windows 10 or Windows 11, or you can use any server OS, and you can distribute that particular VM to many users. For the load balancing, we use either breadth first or depth first method to distribute the users on the pooled host. So this is what we have learned on this session. First, we will review how the Azure Virtual Desktop objects are organized with a resource group. After that, we will create the workspace, and at last we will deploy the Azure Virtual Desktop. So we will need a couple of items to work through this section. we need a Azure AD Connect. We should have an Azure AD Connect with the right to create Azure Virtual Desktop environment, and we required an Active Directory domain services, and at last a valid email address for sending the cost alerts. Alright, let's get started with organizing object and resource group next. Here I just explained what is resource group, how should we place the workspace with resource group. My intention here is that we should follow a good practices while creating the workspace and placing the proper resource group while creating the workspace. If you follow this, you can reduce the issues in future. That is my intention to explain this area. Let's start by talking a minute to review the role of resource group playing organizing Azure Virtual Desktop. Objects are organized by resource group in Azure. You are aware of that. All the objects are organized by resource group in Azure. As you are well aware, a resource group is a security boundary and costs can be tracked by this resource group. Microsoft recommendation is to keep object with a similar life cycle in the same resource group. For example, a web server and an Azure SQL instance that support a website, or in our case the server and the application group that make up the Azure Virtual Desktop deployment. So all these we can place it in the same resource group. So what Microsoft recommend, to keep the object with a similar life cycle in the same resource group. So when we deploy a host pool including the session host and application group, we also have the option to create a workspace and add the application group to it. Remember, the workspace is what the user interact with when they log into the Azure Virtual Desktop. We have a host pool and we create a resource group, and we have a session host here, and we create an application group, and dedicatedly we have created a workspace. So this workspace is part of this resource group. So all these session host, application group, workspace, all these are part of the same resource group. When we create a separate host pool, it is in the separate resource group, and we do have the session host here, application group, and a separate workspace is being created and it is attached to each other. So in this scenario, what happens? Let's consider a user is having access to the both application group. He has access to the first host pool application group and the second host pool application group. In that scenario, when he log in, he could see two workspaces in his virtual desktop feed. Another option is to add the application from the second host pool to the existing workspace. As you can see here, these two would work, and the end user would see the application from both the host pools and one workspace. The issue is that, let's consider both the host pools have a different life cycle. Consider we want to remove the entire host pool 1, that or whatever resources we have in the host pool 1 resource group. When we remove that, workspace has a dependency, workspace has got a dependency with the host pool 2. So we cannot remove it completely. So this is another challenge. So what is recommended? You can create a separate resource group and create a workspace in that resource group. So this is what we are practically going to do right now. Let's move on. Now let's create the workspace. To create the workspace, let's click on the Azure Virtual Desktop. In my case, it's available in the favorite. If you cannot find that, please search it in the search bar like Azure Virtual Desktop. Click on that, and here you could see a workspace. Click on the workspace. Now we are going to create a new workspace here. You can see I have created one. What I do, I will delete the existing one. All right, let's delete the existing workspace, and we are going to create a new workspace right now. So either you can click on the create workspace here, or you can click on the plus add symbol here. So click on that. All right, so select the appropriate subscription, and in our case we are going to create a resource group here. So I'm going to we are going to create a new resource group. So click on create new, lab 1 WSRG, click OK. Give a name to the workspace. I name it as lab 1 WS. I name it as workspace name. I give as lab 1 workspace. and we give a friendly name here. Here we provide it as lab 1 workspace. All right. So if you want to give any description, we shall give that. So I just copy the same friendly name in the description. And location, in my case, I am selecting it as West Europe. Let me select West Europe. Next for application group. Presently we do not attach any application group to this workspace. We click on next. Enable diagnostic settings, it's not required right now. Click on next. No tagging is required for the lab environment. Let's go review and create it. Click on create. Alright, now we have created the workspace. Now we will move on and create the host pool. To create the host pool, we can click on the host pool here and click on the create host pool. We could see a host pool, an existing host pool here. Let it be there. We will create a new one and click on the add symbol here. All right. So we select our subscription and we create a resource group. In this case, we create a separate resource group. As the workspace and the host pool have a different life cycle, we create a separate resource group for the host pool. So I name the resource group as lab 1 HPRG. Be in capital, lab 1 host pool RG. All right. And host pool, we name it as lab 1 HP. Location we select as West Europe. Validation environment not required. Preferred app group type desktop. Yeah, let it be desktop. Host pool type, we have personal and pool. We select pooled. And hope you know the difference. We have already explained the difference between the personal and pool. If you have not seen my previous videos, you watch that, you will get an idea what is personal host pool and the pooled host pool. We create the pooled host pool here. Load balancing algorithm, again we have explained the same in the previous videos, what is breadth first and what is depth first, what is the difference, how the algorithm works. All that we have already discussed, so I do not want to explain more here. We select the breadth first. Maximum session limit is not required in breadth first case, but still we keep it as 4, which means it allocate the usage evenly. We'll next move on to the virtual machines. Add a virtual machine, we click on yes. Resource group, we keep it as default to the same as host pool. Name prefix, we name it as AVD VM. So what happens if you have selected 2 or 3 session host, what happens each virtual machine like AVD VM1, for the next one it will name it as AVD VM2, AVD VM3. In that way it names to the session host. So we give the name prefix here. Next comes to the virtual machine type, we keep it as Azure Virtual Machine. Location we have selected as West Europe. Availability zone we keep it as zone 2, and security type we select standard. Image we selected as Windows 10 Enterprise multi-session version 22H2 and generation 2. Virtual machine size we have selected a default one which was showing here, as it is a lab environment. I repeat, as it is a lab environment, I have selected whatever machine size has given to me. But when it comes to the production, we will have to plan it. We will have to consider how many total users we have, and simultaneously how many users will be logging in. So all these we'll have to consider while creating the size of the machine and considering the number of VMs by selecting the number of machines, virtual machine size, or while doing this we'll have to plan it. Alright, in our case we keep it as default 1. Now we come to the number of VMs, we keep it as 2. OS disk type, again we'll have to keep premium SSD because it has some effect in the system speed, rendering speed, and also you'll have to select premium SSD. In my case I select standard SSD. OS disk size, again you can select the size of the disk, let it be the default one. Here comes the virtual network. When it comes to the virtual network, this host pool should be able to communicate to the domain controller. Otherwise, the system will not get joined to the domain automatically, and it will not be able to communicate to the domain controller. So when you are selecting the virtual network, either you have to select the virtual network VNet of the domain controller, or if you are selecting a separate virtual network, there should be a proper peering between both the virtual network. So keep that in mind. So in my case, what we will do, we will just check our domain controller belongs to which VNet. So we select the same VNet, and our issue will be resolved in this case. So let's see which is our domain controller. This is our domain controller in Intune on-prem. This is my domain controller. So I will just check which is the virtual network. In this case, you can see Intune test -vnet / default. This is my VNet. So I will select the same one here. Here comes the domain joining process. So we will have to give the AD join UPN, provide the domain admin details here. Domain admin username and password, domain admin user ID here, which is jojo at, okay, and I provide the password here. All right, now we move to the virtual machine administrator account. This is the local admin account. While creating the virtual machine, this will be the local admin user ID and the password. So we give a local admin ID. You have to provide a local admin username and the password. All right, let's move on to the next workspace. We already have created a separate workspace, so we attach that workspace here. We select the workspace from the list, which is lab1 WS. Click on advanced, click on tags, review, and create it. So after the validation, it will create the machine. It will create the session host, and that session host will be joined to the domain automatically. So it may take some time. I click on create. There are a certain error may occur, which may probably it may be related to the domain user ID and password you have given, or the virtual network may not be able to communicate. So these may be the error you may get while deploying host pool. So I am pausing it for the time being. Once it is done, I will resume back. All right, all went well. The deployment completed successfully. Let us go to the resources and see what all the resources got created for this host pool. Yeah, you could see the host pool here. Now if you go to the virtual machines, you could see two new virtual machines. You see AVD VM0 and AVD VM1. These are the session hosts that has been created for the AVD for the Azure Virtual Desktop deployment. All right, now we'll have to provide the application group permissions, and only post that we'll be able to test it whether host pool is working fine or not. We have already created the host pool and workspace. Now let's set the application group permission next. At this point, we have the host pool in place and the remote desktop application group set up. The desktop application group was added to the workspace as part of the deployment, but no users were assigned. Let's take care of that now. Start by going back to the virtual desktop. I go back to the Azure Virtual Desktop and click on host pool. Here we could see the host pool that we have created, and the latest one is lab1 HP, which we added to the resource group lab1 HPRG. We click on that and go to the application group. We could see the we go to the application group. We have the application group here. Click on that and we go to the assignment. We will use group to manage access for Azure Virtual Desktop users. First, we need to create the groups on the domain controller. Let's go back to the domain controller and create some groups for our Azure Virtual Desktop users. Let's log into the domain controller. We are in the domain controller and we'll just open the Active Directory users and computers. Here we have created a few users in the name of AVD user 1, AVD user 2 and AVD user 3, and we have some user in the name of AVD accounting user 1, user 2 and marketing user 1 and marketing user 2. So we will create three groups. One to add one in one particular group we will add all the users. We are creating three separate groups. For the time being we need only one group, but still we create three groups for the future purpose. I can show you the workspace for that allocated to the accounting users, and the workspace that allocated to the marketing users, and the workspace that allocated to AVD all users. So we can segregate and differentiate the difference between the look and feel of the workspace for all the three different groups. So this is my intention to create three different groups. Alright, let's create a group now. Let me just right click and go to new and click on group. We name the group as AVD all users. Click OK, and we will add all the members to that group. Just right click, go to properties and add all the members to this group. We'll go to AVD, click on check names, and let us add all the users to this group. We will add marketing and accounting as well, AVD user 1, 2 and 3, which means we are adding all the AVD users to this particular group. Okay, so we have all the accounting, marketing and AVD users are part of this group. All right, now we will create another group only for the marketing users. We make it as marketing AVD marketing user group, AVD marketing user group, and click OK, and just right click and go to properties. Let's add the members to it. In this group we will add only the AVD marketing members. So AVD MA and check names, we get all the two marketing users here. We add those marketing user 1 and marketing user 2 to the group AVD marketing user group and apply. Click OK. Now we create the third group in the name of AVD accounting group. AVD accounting group. Okay, and just go to properties and add the members as we added for other groups. Here AVD accounting check names. Yeah, we have the two accounting users here. Select both and add those users to the group. Alright, now we have the groups in place. Now we'll just go back again and I'll just show you the path again. We'll go to the Azure Virtual Desktop, select our host pool, select the application group, click on the application group and click on assignment. Here we are going to assign the groups. For this assignment we are adding all the AVD users. So we have AVD all user here. We select it and click select and add it. So we have given the permission for all the AVD all users to the access AVD host pool. Alright, we are going to test logging into the remote desktop session in the host pool we just deployed. Start by opening a new browser or open in a private session. This avoids any credential conflicts within the admin session to the Azure portal. So let me just go to the private window. Let me open a new incognito window, and here this is the particular URL, the web link. So I'll just copy and paste it in the address bar. It asks for the credentials. Here we enter the user name, click next, provide the password here, click on sign in. It asks for the MFA. Let me just enter the MFA here. All right, now this is called the workspace, and we have the session desktop here available. Right click on that and click on allow. Here we have to enter the password again. I have given the password. The first login is to connect to your AVD service, and the second login into the computer with the domain credential that will bring you to the remote desktop. Calculations, you deploy the Azure Virtual Desktop host pool in the remote desktop application. Take a look around and you can sign out accordingly. That's it. All the other things we'll check it in the other video. Till then, goodbye.